So, guys, good morning. I do want to talk about the Ricochet controversy, and what happened was that a few weeks ago, after the AEW pay per view, he did a segment just overreacting and being very emotional and very pissy about how he lost the national championship, and there are people commenting online criticizing his bad acting, and then there was a woman who criticized him, and then he saw on Ricochet saw on her social media that she has multiple sclerosis, and he said, "I'm glad you have MS." So what happened was that last night on Dynamite, and yesterday was the 25th of March, was that Ricochet did a segment, and really it just felt like there was like kind of like a fourth wall reference that he's apologizing, but the attitude of AEW is, the show must go on with it, and I do want to talk about that. I think like my first thing that I'll say is, should Ricochet be on television right now? And my answer is absolutely not. I do think that there's two things that they could have done. That number one, they could have said, okay, well, Ricochet is suspended from Dynasty, but he'll be back in May. He's going to sensitivity class. He's going to take classes on how to learn self control online, because that's a good look, really. Because obviously, any type of criticizing of anybody's physical ailments or health issues or mental health issues, that all goes under ableism. And I do understand on Ricochet's side that yes, there is a double standard. If Trey Parker and Matt Stone did the exact same thing, or you see how they make fun of disabilities and whatever, they make fun of everything. Trey Parker and Matt Stone have the most amount of free speech out of anybody in the world, really. So I do understand Ricochet's side of, there's double standards with fans, and how fans are treated versus how wrestlers treat. I get that, but ultimately too, that once you say something very personal about somebody, you have the risk of offending that person and offending more people, and he has to kind of understand that. So I think sensitivity classes would be appropriate. He also has to understand that whatever he does, he's a representative of AEW. So he has to really just, understand that there has to be consequences for that. Because honestly, if you make your company look bad, and AEW has a lot of rebuilding to do, really. They're not in a good place. AEW is not in a good place. They have to have a lot of rebuilding. They have to have a lot of goodwill. So when you have wrestlers who step out of line, you have to say, hey, you know what? We are also changing our leadership. We actually care about what wrestlers do. And when they step out of line, there are consequences. They did a really great, at the O2 in at Forbidden Door, they got over 20,000 people. That's excellent. At the crypto.com, I think they said they sold out, or they got over 12,000 people. That's excellent. There's a lot of people looking at AEW a lot more because they're frustrated with WWE overpricing, really. So there could be a boom period, or there could be a lot of momentum for AEW right now. And honestly, learn from what happened at Wembley Stadium with CM Punk and Jack Perry, where you have to stop wrestlers before things get out of hand, really. And you can't defend wrestlers. You have to punish people accordingly, because shit, shit's very sensitive with AEW. Shit is very sensitive. Like, great example is New Jack and the mass transit incident. With like, that also did hurt ECW at a time when they were trying to get on television. They're trying to get pay per views, but when that happened, a lot of people said, "Hey, it's too violent. It's too out of control. We're not going to give ECW opportunities, really." If you have the public perception is, oh well, Ricochet can do whatever the hell he wants, and they're not actually punishing people, they're going to say, hey, people are going to say, what is this company? It's a free for all, really. Like, where's the structure? Where's structure really in this? It's just a big fucking mess, and then people are gonna like lose trust in you. That's one of the reasons why with TNA wrestling, that's one thing. One of the reasons one of the things that killed the company was Jeff Hardy, getting drunk and all messed up, and they allowed him to go out in the ring. And even though Jeff's accountable of it, that was also very dangerous in TNA wrestling to say, okay, we're going to bring a person who's intoxicated, who's a little messed up, out into the ring and potentially, hurt himself or Sting, or even hurt the fans, really. So So yeah, anytime a person hurts the company, a company needs to not protect that person. They need to discipline that person appropriately. And also, rehabilitation is important in addition to discipline. I feel that he should not be on television. I also will say that it's kind of, well, I will say that I think the big thing that they're trying to do is that there's not a lot of matches for Dynasty. And I understand that with Dynasty, it's a very it's a show that AEW has to do a better job with because it's during WrestleMania season, and they have to be like, okay, this how does this show matter during WrestleMania season? So I think that what I'm trying to say is, and what I think what a lot of people may not know is that they're probably trying to do a match of Jack Perry versus Ricochet for the national championship, and when they have that match, they're probably going to do something. Sorry, I work the night shift, you guys, but they're probably gonna do something where they're gonna have like a flippy competitive match and other shit like that. So I really think that that's the reason why he wasn't suspended. Like they really want to get to that point with Ricochet where it's like, okay, now we're trying to make Jack Perry and a couple other people single star with the national championship, but we need Ricochet in that match because he was the former champion. So I think that's the big thing. They want to have Jack Perry versus Ricochet for the national championship at Dynasty. And I also think that when you look at it, it's very bad It's very bad optics because wasn't Jack Perry? Because Jack Perry has done the most damage to AEW with the real glass Crimea River, um, and causing CM Punk to leave the company, wanting to quit, and then also too it really made her a lot of momentum. Well, he's done the most damage, and now years later after that happened, you have Ricochet, and they're both having a match at Dynasty. It wasn't Dynasty the inaugural Dynasty 3 years ago, in 2023, I believe. Wasn't that the show? If I remember correctly, wasn't that when Tony Khan showed the CM Punk footage like a few weeks before then? So it's kind of almost like this really coincidence of like the two people that have done damage to the company. One has done the most damage, and a pay per view that's not only represents Swerve getting his first championship in the getting his first AEW championship in the inaugural one. This also represents in a way something very very bad, and what it represents is what it represents is also it's also like when Tony Khan decided to show the footage and listen to the Young Bucks. So it's just not good that when you look at a match between them and you kind of think of all these things coming together, that's a triple negative. But I think that's why they're kind of keeping Ricochet, and that's how I feel about it. They have usage for him. But I also want to say that as I said before, he should not be on television. But I also want to say it's a bad look for AEW because it honestly comes down to being a friend system. Because like I said, remember Max Caster talked about Duke Lacrosse, Simone Biles, and what's that smell in North Carolina? It's Julia Hart's vagina. He does all that stuff, and he is off television for like a couple of weeks. And the reason why, and he went to sensitivity training. The reason why they did that was because obviously there was more of a reaction by the crowd. And then also during the Me Too movement in professional wrestling, that's when people saw the footage of Sammy Guevara saying, "Oh, he wants to rape Sasha Banks," even though he didn't mean sexual assault. He means to fuck her really, really hard. Because some people use the word rape to mean I'm gonna fuck that girl really, really hard. Um, Not appropriate. We should not be using words like that to mean something else. Really, I'll never ever use those words unless you're talking about a crime happening. But the point of it is, it's interesting when those two incidences causes punishments, but when Ricochet, sorry, like I said, I work the night shift, but when Ricochet does this shit, he's not punished at all, really. So it definitely creates double standards, and it's not good because, um, you know, nobody wants double standards, and like I've lived a life where I've dealt with a lot of double standards, and it's very angering, you know. So, as I said, I really think that ultimately AEW has made their choice. If you don't want to support AEW over it, so be it. Real, I think in my opinion, it's not. It's serious, but it's not the end of the world that they're not punishing him at all, really. You know, and that's happened in professional wrestling. There's been many times, like I know with WWE, what was it that CM Punk and Jeff Hardy had a match, and then the day later Jeff Hardy was arrested for drugs. So obviously they probably knew to give them the honor of having one more match. I also remember, you know, in TNA wrestling, what was it, Raka Khan and Kurt Angle, where Kurt Angle was driving a suspended license. He was caught with drugs, I believe, if I remember correctly. I'll just look up quickly at Wikipedia. And then also, he was arrested for harassment of her. And that was during the Hard Justice 2009 show. So after he did all that shit, he was still allowed to compete in the main event when people were chanting, "You got arrested," and he was still able to retain his title when they could have given it to Matt Morgan or somebody else even. So TNA Wrestling has done that, and also with that wrestler Tessa Blanchard when they wanted to do that match of what was it, Sami Callihan versus Tessa Blanchard, and Tessa Blanchard ended up becoming the first the woman to hold the a men's heavyweight championship in professional wrestling. Despite a lot of criticism, it says something when she says racist things like, you know, I'm eating fried chicken, I want to get my inner nigger out, and other like heavy shit. Really, it does say something when TNA Wrestling says, okay, after PC and everything like that, we're gonna make Tessa Blanchard our champion. Obviously, saying the N word is more severe than making fun of someone with multiple sclerosis, but both are very egregious things, really. But as I said before, it's not a good look for AEW. And even though other wrestling companies have done like egregious shit and allowed a lot of things to go unpunished, you look at like what was that, the plane ride of hell incident with how Ric Flair was not punished for sexual harassment or alleged sexual harassment, alleged sexual assault. Really, there's been a lot of times in professional wrestling where people have not been punished at all, really, and sometimes it comes down to connections, or maybe the boss saying, "I got a long term plan and I just don't want to throw my notes down the drain." Really, you know, so. It's unfortunate AEW is doing this, like giving Ricochet no consequences, but you know that's just the nature of business. It's not about it's not about ethics. It's about who makes these people money.